Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Inclusive PH podcast. I'm Job Buenazedacruz, founder of Inclusive PH. I'm also an art director from the tech startup Canva and also a design research consultant with CIA Bootleg Manila. In this episode, we'll be talking all about gender inclusion. So, whatever profession or industry you're in, whether that's design, software development, marketing, medicine, or if in your company you're in operations or maybe the admin of an establishment or any industry at all, really. If you want to know how to support the LGBTQX plus movement through your profession, then this episode is for you. So, this is just the second episode of the podcast, but I just also want to say that each episode is basically kind of a user interview or a customer interview, which, as a design researcher, I do for a living. I interview users or customers about their needs, about how they interact with products or their experiences with services. But of course, those interviews are usually done privately and are sometimes confidential. So, what I want to do is to be able to make user interviews available to the public, available to you. So, that you can listen in and learn about user needs together with me. So, today we have four amazing guests who will shed some light on important issues like the whole bathroom issue, among other things. And, the whole bathroom issue, I actually don't know much about, and everything about gender inclusion, I'm very ignorant about, to be honest. And that's actually the reason why we prepared this episode so that so that we can all learn about gender inclusion together. And today we have two industrial designers, Naz Nekoudast and Alan Malumay, who will be facilitating the discussion. I'll be behind the scenes today. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. And Naz, Alan, over to you.
All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Inclusive PH podcast. I'm Naz Nekoudast, applied physics and industrial design major. I have worked as an industrial designer. I've worked as a celebrity and influencer marketer and manager, and I've done some freelance work. And I am here with my co-host Alan Malumay, which we were batchmates together with Joe, with the creator of Inclusive PH. Alan, why don't you introduce
Yes.
yourself?
I'm Alan Malumay. I'm currently a art director for an live events company here in Makati. And I was an industrial design major together with Naz and Job. And basically that's it.
Great. So, in this episode, we will be talking about inclusive design in particular and in relation to LGBTQ inclusivity in design. The thing is, our goal is hopefully by talking about some topics that may be uncomfortable, we will be able to shed some light on design industry, educate or share our knowledge, or bring up some questions that we can, suggest some solutions for businesses, different industries, bureaucracy, and how various groups or communities are being treated in different industries, especially in the workplace. The thing is, we acknowledge that talking about LGBTQ inclusivity in design cannot be totally separated from discrimination and inequality. But then we're gonna see where we can more pinpoint towards design and wherever we can shed or expound on how it can be further discussed and further what do you call it, like to come up with suggestions for new designers. That is our goal, and that's what we will be doing. uh, when it comes to the thing is, with the pandemic that is happening and everything shifting to digital, the thing is there are so many conversations that are gone online, but we all know that they don't necessarily reflect in real life. But hopefully, the more we talk about these topics, we can make it mirror in real life in more pronounced ways. So I would like to start with our guests and let them introduce themselves. Mark, why don't you take it away?
Hi, my name is Mark Lacsamana. I am currently the head of design for Grocery. So I'm a UX designer by trade, mostly designing around websites, also, and generally around organizations. So that's my day job, but I also do design thinking for human rights causes and health causes such as HIV, things like that. I am also currently like one of the heads for LGBTQ causes for Filipino freethinkers, and I am also a cycling advocate, mostly volunteering around different causes like Cycling Matters and mostly that.
Right.
And we also have with us Ali. So Ali, take it away.
Hello, I'm Aly Cabanos. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a licensed professional teacher. I taught nursery and kinder. I'm now a designer at Canva. I am part owner of Vado, a local clothing that champions inclusivity.
Great. Mibo.
Thank you.
Okay, so hi, I'm Mibo Borres. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am a licensed psychometrician. I'm also currently taking my master's degree in counseling psychology. Aside from studying, I also work for one psychological center and gender center. So my work is mostly focused on helping, providing workshops for corporations, government entities, and non-government organizations in the Philippines. So aside from that, I also do like counseling or interventions for SOGI-related issues.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mibo. And we have also Miss Mela.
Hi, Alan and Naz, and hello to everyone who is watching right now. I am Mela Habijan, your first ever Miss Men's Global. I say that with pride because I carry the Philippine flag with so much honor and dignity. I am a proud transgender woman from the city of Marikina, which is in the headlines in the last few weeks because of Ulysses. But we're hoping. I am a writer by profession. I have written scripts for ABS-CBN. I do freelance writing right now. I'm also an actress. You've seen me in teleseries and digital series. I'm also a writing mentor for students and teachers teaching journalism, specifically teacher writing. And I'm also proud to have created a product of my own, a peanut butter. So I'm a peanut butter maker, which I need after myself. It's Mela's peanut butter. So that's who I am right now. And basically, my pride as a trans woman brought me to the advocacy of LGBTQ plus rights.
Great.
uh,
Thank
I
you.
forgot to mention. So my pronouns are he, him as well. So yes.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Since our podcast is about design, we'd like to ask each of our guests to perhaps give a short definition of what design is to them. Right, Miss
Yes, we can
Mela?
start off. Yeah.
With me,
Yeah.
Yeah, with Mela. Yeah.
you had me a short definition.
Yes, a short definition.
You can try.
Well, um, the design for me is a manner of understanding the world. Well, that's my short definition.
Okay. You can expound more if you want.
Um, so I understand the world through the things that I see, and I appreciate the world with how things are designed, whether it be structural or aesthetically. I appreciate the world by how I see it, and design helps me in creating a better understanding of not just the world, but also of who I am as a person, understanding the people around me. I think the point of design is to be able to carry definitions that will be able to easily understand one another. So, ganoon ko nakikita ang design.
Yeah, actually, that
Yes.
reminds me of one of Churchill's sayings. He said something that we shape buildings, and then later on they shape us. So basically, that is definition of design. That we design things, and then they design us. And it's a cycle of us like evolving as human beings. Ali, why don't you give us your definition of design?
Design for me is about finding solutions, conveying information. Design, it's a creation of an experience.
Ooh,
Oh,
That's my
that's great.
definition of design.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Ali. And how about Mibo? What is
Okay,
design for you?
so building on what everyone has said so far, parang reflecting Mela's statement na parang design reflects each one of us. So with that, parang design, of course, aside from the aesthetic component, design for me is parang a way of parang a way of making daily living more efficient for everyone. And when I said everyone, it includes every one of us, despite of race, age, gender, or sexuality even.
Awesome. Now, Mark.
Oh, so design for me, well, essentially, like everyone has said something like that I would probably actually answer as well. But I see design as as how the dictionary would define it. A design is a plan, and by that, design, in a sense, kind of shows you and shows me what the designers or the implementers or the creators of a plan actually prioritize and find important. So do they prioritize certain people over certain else, or do they prioritize everyone in that sense? In that case, so like when we talk about designing as problem solving, do we put importance on the problems of everyone or just a select few? For queer people, for the LGBTQ community, do we take into consideration or do we put a priority or importance to the problems that they have, to the specific context that they have, and things like that? So to me, design is like taking those into considerations and shedding a light on what is important to the people who create design, because design is also about systems and the systems we create as well.
Definitely. Totally agree with everybody. So hopefully we can come up with a universal definition. But of course, a lot of it also could be subjective. All right. So we're going to be moving on to asking our guests. I would like one of our guests who has more, I think that would be you, Mark, who has more, Mark and me both, who have more information to shed light on the Sogi Soji, and how it implementing that law could affect design for its betterment.
Should I start, or Mibo, do you want to start?
Go start.
It's okay.
Then
Okay.
I follow. Yeah.
Okay. Um, again, if you take a look at design, I mean, design is a plan, and everything in our world is technically designed in such a way. Even the way governance and our government and our society is designed. Laws are specific design rules or principles that we follow in terms of design. By adding laws to it, we actually like shed light on certain things that we prioritize or we find important. The Soji bill is one of those things, where we want to actually like solve or help solve problems that are specific to LGBTQ individuals. Certain things around the Soji bill that actually finally gives importance or like tries to gives a layer of protection to LGBTQ people is things around discrimination, which has never been actually like called out ever in the law before. It's you for again, I'm the only one amongst our guests who who is cisgendered right now, so I can't really speak for them. But I realize like this is also a problem where you can't actually talking about someone and misgendering someone is an act of violence in itself. And the Soji Equality Bill or Anti-Discrimination Bill actually puts a light on those kinds of issues. Or like let's say being discriminated at work or in establishments, like not being able to come into bathrooms that you identify as, or not having or be feeling safe when you just want to pee or do your business or go to anywhere essentially. So the Soji Equality Bill specifically highlights those specific things.
Yes. Maybe some people don't know what the SOGIE means in the bill. So
Mm.
can anyone tell me what the SOGIE means in the bill, please?
Parang I was planning to start my
Go.
statement with that then. So before we
Go
dive
Mibo.
Yeah.
before we dive deeper with the Soji bill or any discussion that we ought to have today, let's first define what Soji is. So SO sexual orientation, GI gender identity, and GE gender expression. So basically all of us has Soji, not just LGBT community, even straight or cisgender people. So basically, Soji Bill simply aims to equal protection rights for everyone. It doesn't mean parang superior rights for LGBT community, no. It parang hindi yun. Parang it just means inclusive, like equal rights. And then when we talk about inclusive design, it doesn't mean we aim to eradicate the design that we have right now mostly serve like the heteronormativity or the gender binary. It's just said na we just want to be more, I don't know, again, more inclusive to others without, ano mo yun, hindi ka tinatanggalan, hindi nagtatanggal ng ibang karapatan. Parang ganun. So, there. It's just, parang for me, it should be simple as that. But of course, I do acknowledge that the experience of LGBT community can be really complex for others. And then building then on what Mark has said so far, parang most of the LGBT people that I know live in constant fear every single day. Kasi with the lack of laws na protecting us. For example, kasi isipin mo, kung may bullying, kahit sa school, kahit sa public, merong laws agad. O, pag nabully ka, ganito gagawin mo. Pumunta ka sa ganito, sa ganyan, magsubong ka dito, magpag ka ng ganito. Pero kapag experience ka ng sexual or lalo na gender-related, I don't know, parang negative experience, yun ang lalapitan mo. And kapag lalapit ka pa sa iba, parang they won't take you seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Honestly, I didn't know that it was that it applies to everybody. But as a cisgender female, like that makes me feel better. Hopefully, how it will
yes.
be. Hopefully, it will be implemented well as well. Our society.
And yeah, I think we should also define, I think anyone can answer this, what sexual orientation is, what gender identity is, what gender expression is. So anyone can answer what is sexual orientation. I think that's we have to define that so people can understand thoroughly what the
The
Soji
differences
bill
and the
is. Yeah, the differences. So
Go ahead.
yes.
Okay. So when we understand that Soji, it actually pertains into the personal journey of one person in discovering himself, herself, and themselves. It starts with identity, GI, gender identity. But when you look at yourself, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a man, as a woman, or you are not, you don't want to comply to the binary definition of gender? So that's what gender identity is. So yeah, under gender identity, you have cisgender. It means that it is in line with the sex assigned at birth. If you have a penis and you see yourself as a man, if you have a vagina and you see yourself as a woman, so you are a cisgender person. Um, on the other side of the fence, we have people like us, in which we were born and we were assigned a specific sex at birth. However, it is not aligned with how we see and identify ourselves. So we are transgender people. So, example, me, I was born with a penis. The assigned sex at birth um, to me was male. However, growing up, I saw myself as a woman. I regarded myself as a woman. And I want society to see me as a woman. That is my identity. Hence, I am a transgender person. However, there's also another layer in which I don't want to be associated with malehood or womanhood. So this is what we call the queer people or the non-binary people, and it's okay to be non-binary. It's okay not to associate yourself with the binary definition. Kaya nga kanina nung sinasabi, how will design help us in discovering ourselves? Because we were so accustomed into this male-female
Yeah,
spectrum. But in reality, when we look into gender as a whole, we're diverse. Diba?
mm,
And that diversity encompasses gender identity. Now, leading to sexual orientation, this naman is moving yourself outward. Attraction na kasi ito. Diba? Who do you want to go to bed with?
mm.
Who makes your heart beat faster? Diba? Parang ganon. So,
Our
nandun na
stomach flutter with
yes.
butterflies.
Who do you feel connected with? So, that's sexual orientation. At maraming uri ng sexual orientation. You have heterosexual, that's attraction to the opposite sex. You have homosexual attraction to the same sex or gender. You have attraction to both sexes or gender. That's bisexuality. You also have attraction to no sex or gender. That's asexuality.
Reality.
If you have attraction to any sex or gender, that's pansexuality. And this is something that we must acknowledge. It's okay to be attracted to anyone, regardless of sex and gender, because attraction is a personal experience. And lastly, expression. So um, we became accustomed to that experience of masculinity and
And
femininity.
femininity.
Diba? So maybe more feminine or more masculine, but there's also something in between. You don't want to be associated or not to conform with the masculine and feminine representation of things, diba? Of how you dress up, of how you move, diba? So these are very dynamic and varied. So when we explore on gender as a whole, I want us to open our minds that it's not just pink or blue. Rather, we are a spectrum of colors. So relating that to design, sana hindi na natin associate yung lalaki with blue and yung
And
babae with pink. Because
Pink,
men
yeah.
can wear pink and women can love blue and all of us can appreciate Roy G. Biv because these are colors. Kung gusto man ng chartreuse or aubergine or kung ano man, lots of
Spell
colors,
chartreuse.
Basil, Basil Rose. Ganun.
Diba? So,
Thank
yun.
you.
Siguro,
That was awesome.
may I-
That was-
may okay, sorry.
Thank you,
I
Mela.
agree with what Mela said so far. Like, but I just want to enrich it more further. Like, of course, for sexual orientation and gender identity all boils down to sex and gender. So I just want to like lalatag ko lang yung difference between that since most of the time sex and gender are intercorrelated
Maybe
terms na minsan akala nung iba parehas lang yun. Sex and gender are parehas but in reality they are very distinct terms. So sex refers to your biological components, your I don't know, your if you have penis or vagina, parang ganyan. And then and sex is usually assigned at birth by a professional. And then while on the other hand, gender is your internal sense of gender.
Mm.
Parang nga sinabi ni Mela kanina, how do you see yourself? Parang ganun. Hence, sexual orientation and gender identity.
On the side note to that as well, when it comes to sex, we have to remember that it is also not just a binary.
Yeah.
There are people who are intersex as well, who may not who again this actually happens. Some people don't have like specific male defining or female defining genitalia at birth, or it might be something that they actually either had to go through like assignment surgery for specifically for them to be assigned something at birth. Actually, there are certain advocates who are actually advocating against that when they don't have any consent, because when you're a baby you can't consent.
Yeah.
But yeah, but a good example of that to make it clear as well, because gender identity and sexual orientation are not intrinsically linked. Like example, a trans woman may be attracted to the same gender identity as they are. So in a sense, like there are trans women who are technically homosexual, a lesbian trans woman,
Yeah.
and there are trans men who are homosexual who are attracted to men as well. So this is something that I actually like had a light bulb moment at one Metro Manila Pride, where I was able to talk to a trans woman, ask them to like assign themselves on a genderbread man, and I asked them like, put yourself, so like, what do you identify as? I identify as a woman. And said, how do you, what is your sexual orientation? Homosexual? Heterosexual, of course. I'm not attracted to to other women's, and like that made total sense to me, because again, like example, Mela, because she identifies as a woman and is attracted to men, she is heterosexual in that sense, and that is very different from being cisgendered, transgendered, or genderqueer or non-binary in that sense.
Okay, so parang last na last, sorry.
Ah.
Parang ang daming labels na, ang daming labels for sexual orientation, ang daming labels for gender identity. But I just want to say, if any of these labels doesn't serve you well, then you don't have to use it.
Two.
You don't
Yes.
have to identify as a woman, as a male, as a transgender, as a non-binary. If it doesn't serve you well, then you don't have to use it.
Well, that's true. As a species, we love to complicate things, and then we're complaining about it and classification. I want to give an example, and I wanted you to expound on it. I wanted to ask our guests to expound on it. Recently, I've noticed in some websites that I log into, when they ask for sexual orientation and gender, I've seen a lot that are limited to male, female. I've seen some that says other, or some that are prepared not to say. And I wanted to ask our guests, what is your suggestion, or how do you see these forms could be relevant to some websites and to some no, or in bureaucracy or offices when they ask for your sexual orientation? And how, if it is relevant in particular, how it should be treated or implemented or asked.
Yes, we can start with Ali for the form. So how do you think our form should be made with male, female, and others, or what are your thoughts about that?
Personally, kasi kapag nag-fill up ako ng forms, it bugs me pag nakalagay gender, male, female lang. Tapos, lalo na pag, lalo na kapag alam naman nila na hindi pa ako nagpa-pass na male, hindi pa ako nagpa-transition. So, parang i-correct talaga nila ako. Tapos, it makes me feel so bad. So, parang ang hirap rin na, mas prefer ko nakalagay sex at birth than gender support.
And Mibo,
Okay.
what do you think?
Well-
What about what Ali said?
Forms. Well, when asking someone's gender, I mean, for me, you should ask yourself first: do you really need to know
You know,
someone's gender, or if kailangan mo malaman, para saan, diba? And then, of course, mostly nga talaga ng forms ngayon are strict to male and female. Well, siguro, well, I also encounter some forms naman na parang less bad na naglalagay sila ng others. Parang ganyan. Well, sa amin nila, it's less bad. Less bad kasi parang yung ibang gender nagiging others na lang, di ba? So, aside from that, others, gusto ko rin yung form na merong prefer not to say. Parang nagkakaroon ng choice yung ibang tao, whether to disclose their gender or not. And then with the forms, meron nga, sabi nga, yung iba, comfortable sila na nakalagay is sex assigned at birth. But the parang precaution lang with indicating that sa mga forms kasi it can actually trigger
Girl.
gender dysphoria for others. Parang ano ba yun? O, sino ka ba for your past life? Parang gano'n. Which is sometimes parang full of negative experience. So, yun lang sa akin. Before you ask for someone's gender, ask yourself first. Ask yourself first whether you really need it or not.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
when
you
you
mentioned
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
you mentioned about gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten our viewers what gender dysphoria is?
Parang masyado siyang clinical.
Simple,
Ano.
parang medyo ano lang, yung simple definition lang ng
Simple
gender
definition.
dysphoria.
Well, it's the discomfort with one's, I don't know, gender. Discomfort with one's gender. For example,
Towards
I do
external,
external. And then, sige, i-conceptualize na lang natin to make it more simple. For example, me, I do experience gender dysphoria most of the time. Especially when I'm being misgendered by other people. Pag tinawag akong ma'am, for example, whoa, it could trigger a lot of parang gender dysphoria kasi other people sees me as the gender that I don't associate with. Parang they see me as a female but I don't identify as a female. Identify as a male.
Male.
You know? So I think that's a simple explanation for that.
Yes. And going back to what you said because sa forms, 'di ba, meron tayong
Yeah.
male and female, and you said, what is it for? Well, what my view on that is, I think it's for either statistics, marketing, or something else. So, what do you think is the best way? I mean, Mark and Mela, what do you think are the best way to address this concern that if they are going to use this for marketing or if they're going to use it for statistics
I think it's
What-
also for communication.
or for communication?
Like
Yes.
they want to know how to address you.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
So what is the best thing to put in the forms? Is it sex at birth?
Oh,
Is that
I get-
fine?
I guess like from my experience as well. Like asking for gender is one of the first when like all my previous jobs. So from as well, like I actually used to work for a job matching platform as well. So gender was something that was asked. One of the first things that I normally like try to change right away when I lead the design team is changing gender to like something that's more accurate, like sex. But at the same time, it is a little problematic in a sense that to me, the big question comes in is why do you need to know as well?
Yeah.
To me, in most cases, the only reason you would need to know one's gender or like sex assigned at birth, specific even sex assigned at birth as well, because it can be traumatizing. Like I've been called out for it before with things that I've designed. Um, is if it was something that particularly medical that we kind of need to know so that we understand how to kind of like fix our at least what they call this design our medical what they call this how we do specific treatment like because it might affect your hormone treatment, etc., things like that. So we don't want to we don't want to affect certain things. So it's I would say it only fits in that specific circumstances when you're talking about medical issues, because like let's say if you are going to be given some certain kind of meds that might affect other meds that you're taking, or especially when you're taking certain things that affect your liver, kidney, etc. um, but at the same time, let's say like if you're being addressed, I would actually prefer it if you just ask what is your pronoun instead. I mean, if that's the case, you're being asked about what is your how do you want to be addressed, ask how do you want to be addressed, because at the same time a pronoun is very different and and sometimes it's not always related to someone's gender identity. A very good example, I mentioned this before actually for a friend. There is this transgender actor, or sorry, there's this transgender actor in the States. His name is Man. So he's a trans man, identifies as genderqueer or non-binary, but prefers to use the pronoun he/him because his gender expression is masculine. So if you were going to ask about how somebody would want to be how you
Yes.
what they call addressed, just ask the pronoun, I would say. But yeah, so and also like let's say for marketing questions, I would actually want to be very, especially now in the age of like big data. Um,
Mhm.
it's actually better to be transparent about that you are asking this information because it leads to marketing data. But to the marketers out there, when we're talking about design, you have to also ask yourself, why do you equate female gender or gender identity to specific certain things, etc. So like a good example, so I'm a cyclist, and um, and athletics are usually gendered items. And it's funny how, like, let's say bikes. I am specifically a roadie. I use road bikes a lot, and geometry is a very important thing to road cycling. There are women specific bikes and there are men specific bikes because geometry is something that changes. But for trans people, like, where does that happen? This is where like I give props to certain large bike companies like Specialized and Trek are very particular bike companies who have taken away with like gendering their bikes and focused on geometry instead to make it more unisex. So like, is this a small bike? Is this for small torsoed people? Is this for long torsoed people, etc.?
Yeah.
And
So
they take away the coloring for that as well, by the way. So like women can
true.
have dark blue bikes.
Yeah. And going back to the forms, I would just an idea just popped in my head. Like, is it better if we put kunwari, male, female, trans male, trans female, something like that? I mean, what do you think about that, Mela? Is it more appropriate, or do you think it will be more of a problem for the LGBT community?
You know what, Alan? Because I'm a language specialist. I think it's very important that we put the words out there because
Yeah.
customary to what we have been acculturated with, we do not understand words that we are not familiar with. Therefore, if they are not in our language, they are not in our experiences, hindi natin sila maintindihan. Halimbawa, ang salitang kilig. Kilig is not understood by other nationalities
Yeah.
because we don't have a specific translation to it. We can only describe it. We can only just explain it to them what kilig really means. But it's so hard for them to understand. And right now, I guess that we are introducing these concepts of diverse and a variety of gender. Ako, for me, it's a must that we put transgender, cisgender, asexual, these words that we are not familiar with, so that people can understand it. Kasi sanay tayo, nakikita tayo. Dahil nabuhay tayo na ang understanding lang natin ng mundo ay lalaki at babae. At nagugulat lang sila whenever they hear, what's non-binary? What's non-binary? What's
Yes.
transgender? Even I only discovered the word transgender 2012. And I had to acculturate myself into the term so that I can fully know who I really am. So for me, if there are forms, then maganda siguro na ilagay natin yung mga cisgender, transgender, non-binary, queer, para naiintindihan ito ng mga tao. Because if it's not out there, then people
Okay.
won't care to understand. Diba? Wala kasing springboard eh. Walang springboard. The moment that we put these words out there, di ba? Maipapaliwanag siya and there can be enlightenment and there can be understanding. And I think as with my experience as an advocate explaining the context and concept of Soji, may mga nakakaunawa at marami silang questions about it and they get to discover that yes, gender is not binary and gender is a beautiful um, experience of diversity because they get to encounter these words. Diba? Kaya Ako parang um, when this senator race, ang dami-dami namang letters, which is
Mhm.
exactly the point. Marami kasi tayo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Di ba?
I agree
Marami
with
tayo.
you.
Don't limit your exploration and understanding of the world because that's what education is all about. Di ba? When we were born into this world, alam ba natin ang mga salitang beautiful, pretty, even ang permutation nga ng salitang beautiful, di ba? There's beautiful, there's pretty, there's gorgeous, there's adorable.
Fabulous.
Fabulous.
This is one way to explain what gender is about. Diba? Hindi lang siya isang salita, but there are a variety of ways to experience sadness, diba?
Mm.
Diba? May mga, kunwari, malungkot ako. Yung level sa Filipino, ang ganda, nagdadalamhati,
But
may pighati, diba? And these connote different kumbaga, meanings and levels of sadness. Diba? So, we have to put it out there so that we can be understood. And when we are understood, then people will become more educated.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially with linguistics. If it's not inserted within languages that are spoken in everyday life, it cannot enter the culture either. So
Exactly.
I totally agree with Mela on, there has to be options for people when it comes to forms and bureaucracy. Is there any other examples of bad design when it comes to product design, let's say, beyond bureaucracy that you can think of that has been not inclusive, or perhaps a good design that has been inclusive of gender?
Wait, sorry. Before we move to other products or spaces, parang I
Go
just
ahead.
want to add with the forms na usapan. Parang, well, yes, I do agree na listing down can be a helpful way.
Mhm.
Na ilista mo lahat ng gender since marami tayo. And I agree na we live in a language world, and when people use a different language, it does not describe your daily experience, and it can be really hurtful. So with that, so aside from like listing down all the genders, I would still push for an option na prefer not to
For
say.
not to say.
Yes.
Kasi
Oh,
other
Because
people,
privacy.
yes, and other people are still in the process of discovering your gender.
Yeah.
Kahit matanda ka na, kasi it changes over time. For example, female ako dati, and I identify as male. There's also a possibility na I would identify, for example, as female again. So there, just want to add that. And then go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want
And
to add something.
yes, Ali.
Go-
with you.
I agree with what Mela said and what Mibo said. Pero yung experience ko lang kasi is for someone who identifies as transgender but not transitioning yet, medyo awkward yun. Lalo na I've experienced transgender people purposely misgendering me kahit na transgender sila mismo. So parang me outing myself to others, it's kind of a scary experience. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
And wait lang.
Parang
And you should
sorry for not to say. No, go ahead.
so passionate with what we're talking about. So sorry. Wait, I just parang yun nga, minsan kasi may discrepancy with the community when it comes to transgender people na iniisip ng iba na valid ka lang kapag nag-medical transition ka
Transition
na.
ka.
No, it's not the case. There are actually two kinds of transitioning. First is social transitioning followed by medical transitioning. And most of the time, mas nauto na talaga yung social transitioning. And some transgender people, minsan hindi na nila need yung medical transition. And then you are valid whether you have medically transition or not. Pero yun nga, as Ali said, may ganung discrepancy pa rin talaga even inside the community itself.
Yeah.
It's actually very
Because regardless, go ahead.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, because regardless of if you have medically transitioned or not, I think it's about gender identity. So even if you have only socially transitioned, it's not about what you have down there. It's
Yeah.
what you identify as.
Yes.
So Naz, you were saying.
No, it is about what your truth is and
Yes.
how you express it. Like it's. I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
A pissed off
Here,
human
if I
being.
may raise,
Mm.
if I may raise, I think this is also part of the acculturated concept that we are defined by how we look.
Mm.
Diba?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's design basically, diba?
That's a reality.
The visual representation. Kaya nga, it's very important that we put these words out there.
Yeah.
And even the prefer not to say is also an indication of a beautiful experience of what? Confusion, identity crisis, of you evolving, of you getting to know who you are. I'll acknowledge the beauty of getting to know who you are. Kaya, di ba, in an inclusive world, you need to put these things para
Mm.
maintindihan yung experiences mo ng ibang tao. We have just been accustomed na, and I feel for Ali because the possibility, yung definition pa rin ng mga tao is looks na naman, gaano ka na ba kalalaki at gaano ka na ba kababae with how you look. And that's not the definition of gender. The gender in itself would always be yours to own and not others to define. So, parang mahalaga that this is included in the discussion so that people would know that no matter how you look, it won't be dependent with how you see yourself because that's inside. That's always a personal journey. Yes, go MP.
So I guess on that, like I totally agree. Now, number one, I guess what you're trying to say is representation matters, and seeing yourself being acknowledged really does matter. I mean, that's what like I just actually finished watching Disclosure this morning,
Oh,
and
that's nice.
yeah, really
Yeah,
really good documentary film. But yeah, like there is power in being acknowledged. But I guess when we're talking about as well, when we talk about digital products and going into what Naz was asking about bad design, we have to be careful as well about things such as disclosure and what when people disclose to, like, let's say, digital products and the products we create, and how we disclose people's information. Because, like, let's say a good example, dating apps. Again, I cannot speak for the transgender experience, but from being and it's a weird thing as well when you're gay. I don't know, I flock to like my trans friends as kind of like yung mga nanay namin. Like Thais, like our common friend ni Mela, is kind of like I call her my mom. They tend to really like look after us. So like I hear yung stories nila about dating apps and how scary it may be, especially when it's out there that you are a trans woman, and it's out there. Or a good example of like how bad design leads into like digital products, let's say in social media apps. um so like let's say there are in social media, so your sexual identity, sexual orientation and gender identity being in a specific app, like the fact that you are sexually attracted to men if you're a man, or that your gender identity is trans woman. If you lived in a country where it was dangerous for you, like let's say you live in a very um, conservative Middle Eastern country,
yeah. I
it
grew up in Iran. I know how dangerous it is.
yes, right,
Yes.
exactly.
It is
People
very.
and people have done that. That's the thing. People have done that where they would just search it up on Facebook, look for men who likes men, and they would actually target those people, and it becomes scary. There are also cases like, let's say, young children being outed on social media apps to their parents when they are not yet ready for it. And like there's this one specific story of a girl who joined the queer and LGBTQ choir of her college, and because the privacy settings of the social media app that she was using automatically like does not allow her to set those parameters around who she discloses to about these specific things, she was automatically accidentally outed to her father, and her father cut her off from money. Now that is a sad state in itself, and that is bad design for queer people because and LGBTQ people and etc. Because you may not be ready for these things, and the act of being out, there is a lot of things there's a lot of privilege in being out, but there's also a lot of danger in being out as well. And some of us are not sheltered by our privileges to actually be safe from being out like that. So yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, totally.
I understand that, and I think it's being gay, straight, I mean, gay, lesbian. You have to tell that to yourself first, and you have to acknowledge it first. No one can really tell you that, oh, you're gay because you move that way, blah 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 blah. And you have to internally, you have to say that, and then externally say that to everyone. They cannot really out you because they think that you're gay or you're
Mhm.
lesbian or whatever. So, and going through that, the LGBT of everything, um I want to talk, we want to talk about naman our case with the bathrooms naman, the design of bathrooms.
Mhm.
So
Signages,
any
fitting room
signages?
signages. We have
Yes,
salons.
signages
I
in
think
bathrooms.
particularly those address the same kind of problems or lack of good design. So if you have any suggestions in terms of how it could be improved, that would be great.
Yeah. Like probably architectural or something like that. Design in signages, if it's appropriate for to have another bathroom for trans or for lesbians or gays, for the LGBT.
Okay, so
Mibo, what would
bathrooms.
you say?
Well, of course, bathrooms, medyo na, ano talaga siya, like, it's a big deal, especially for the trans community. Kasi, for example, sige, just conceptualizing it with my own experience, since I do acknowledge that we do have different experience. So in my experience, of course, I haven't medically transitioned yet. So, of course, most of the time naman I pass. But meron ding times na I do not pass, na minsan may feminine feature talaga na mas nangibabaw. And my experience with, of course, titignan mo, di ba, sa mall, even before, kasi ngayon, di ba, may mga gender-neutral bathrooms na. Pero before that, wala talaga. Like, PCR ka, male and female. And then, on one hand, I do want to use the comfort room is aligned with my gender identity. But at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, there is a constant fear. I don't know, kasi when you, pagpapasok ka sa male comfort room, of course, pag nalaman nila na, oh, you're not like male, there's a lot of fear involving that. Na actually may mga violence na nangyayari with that. And then on the other hand, when you use the female bathroom, na hindi maiwasan na maraming nakatingin sa'yo kasi, oh, minsan may na-encounter ako na tinignan talaga ako from head to toe na nasa loob na ako ng CR ko. But parang at the end of the day, I just want to pee. Parang wala nga akong sa'yo, ganyan-ganyan. But at the same time, yun nga, hindi talaga may iwasan that people are watching you just because of how you present yourself. And then, actually, I'm really thankful na right now, at least right now, we have the gender-neutral comfort room. Kasi minsan, ako or I know a lot of trans people, pinipigil talaga yung bladder. And it can result to not just emotional but physical parang ano, di ba?
Medical.
Illness, so
Medical.
medical. So yun. So there. That's a big talk, yung bathrooms.
How can we advise designers on, including better designs, or is there any processes that you can suggest to designers to think of inclusivity when it comes to designing these, let's say, architecture or signages or houses themselves?
So since right now, yung background ko is mostly on psych, and then siguro, when I talk about design, mostly humuhugot ako with my daily experience as a normal transgender, ganyan. But right now, I mean, parang panatag ako, right now, with yung presence ng gender-neutral comfort room. Kasi in my research, kasi yung iba, they proposing na, let's just have another parang comfort group na nakalagay, LGBTQ. Parang ganyan. Parang kapag gumawa ka kasi nun, masyado mong ina-other na talaga. No, ibang tao kayo, dito kayo sa bathroom nyo, sa comfort room nyo. So right now, at least right now, panatag ako sa presence ng gender-neutral comfort room. And I'm sure Mark, Ali, Mela has better ideas when it comes to this design.
So the gender-neutral bathrooms are the he, she, or the bathroom that is for everyone. That's it.
Yes, for everyone.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Mela? How has your experience been when it comes to areas or spaces like this?
I think I had difficulties going to the bathrooms in the province because, in my experience, they still don't understand the concept of being a transgender. To them, it still is something that is new and something that they're still adapting to. And I acknowledge that. Kasi sabi ko nga, the world is transitioning as we also transition and introduce ourselves. So it takes time for us to be understood. And I can't wait for that moment in which people will just appreciate the word and term and the idea of being a transgender in this world. Diba? And so are the other gender identities and the other sexual orientations. Doon ko talaga naranasan na I was asked to go to the men's restroom. So what I did was I went to the management. And I asked them if they have policies with regard to transgender people. And they told me that they are still in the process of understanding what transgender is all about. And at first, kumaga reflecting about it, sabi ko, shocks, ganun pala talaga kahirap yung battle ng LGBTQ because kung sa Manila nga, nandun yung constant battle of you educating others, what more pa sa provinces that behind pa rin pala ang understanding nila of who we are right now. And that brought me into a situation that I will never get tired of educating people of LGBTQ plus as an identity, as an orientation, and as an expression. Kasi yun lang yung constant reminder for everyone na diverse tayong lahat. So, doon ako nanggagaling sa ganong idea. I must agree with Mibo that gender-neutral bathrooms are a safe space for us because, halimbawa, pumunta ka sa establishments like Nectar or O-Bar, ang sarap lang pala sa feeling na parang nandun lang tayo and we just look at each other and hinihitian lang natin yung isa't isa because we know that we are in a safe place. Because unlike dun sa iba talaga na meron talagang pagtingin mula ulo hanggang paa, meron pagtingin na parang anong ginagawa mo dito. But in a gender-neutral bathroom, because you understand that this space is safe for everyone regardless of who you are, diba? May nagbabatian, may nagshishikahan, hello, hi, kamusta naman tayo dyan? So, parang it's a comfort room. And then comforting experience of the comfort room. Yes. Diba? So, nagkaroon ng bagong definition yung comfort room na it is indeed a safe space for everyone. But I hope that we will come to a time in which hindi na lang mapupunta yung issue sa bathroom. Kasi part of it, trivializing kasi yung experience ng bathroom sa experiences ng LGBTQ plus community. Bakit? Kasi the bathroom will always be the signifier of the genitalia. Nandun na naman tayo parati. Stuck rin tayo dun sa issue ng genitalia na may penis ka, may vagina ka, ito ka. Hindi eh. We are way beyond that. The experiences of LGBTQ plus community will always be beyond the genitals. So, sana, hopefully, hindi ako kasi I am not pessimistic about the future. I am hopeful in fact. The fact that we are discussing these issues right now, and we are reinforcing designs to be able to accommodate and be inclusive. This is such a beautiful discussion because we get to discuss experiences from different perspectives, like Mibo, like Ali, like MK, and me. I am fascinated hearing their respective experiences kasi at the end of the day, iba-iba tayo ng context.
Mm.
Diba? At yung context na yon will help us find the intersection so that we can accommodate and we can move towards a more accepting society.
So,
Yes.
um,
Moving
Very
on. I
well
mean,
said.
sorry.
okay.
Moving on because bathrooms we can equate that to
Mm.
other stuff like parlors,
Mm.
barbershops, stuff that are that requires you to have be
Gendered.
of gendered
Yeah.
gendered to enter. Like, what is your experience, Ali, like having do you go to a parlor or do you go to a barbershop?
Recently lang, na-try ko mag-barber shop kasi nakakatakot actually. Kasi papasok ka, puro lalaki, tapos nilignan ka nila. So, na-try ko lang actually ngayong quarantine lang kasi wala masyadong tao.
Okay.
So,
Mga
what experience? How was it?
okay naman. Parang, yun lang, meron ako isang awkward experience na hindi alam ni kuya na ah transgender. So, parang, hinahawak-hawakan talaga ako, minamasahe. Tapos, hindi ko alam tuloy kung mag-iiba ba yung treatment sa akin kapag nalaman niya. I'm actually very terrified.
Pero I think that's normal sa barbershop yung masahe.
Yeah, yung masahe.
Totoo,
It's
yung
very
mga
part of it.
ganon-ganon. That's technically part of it.
Kasi salon wala
Me,
eh.
sa barbershop, ano yon, barbershop talagang mamassage ka dito, tapos kung ano-ano pa. I mean, it's a very normal experience naman. Mibo, do you have any experience in a barbershop? Probably.
Yes, of course. Kasi kahit nung college pa ako, kasi parang nasa all girls ako nung college. So, of course, yung uniform, of course, pang babae, ganyan. And then, pupunta akong barbershop, of course. Kasi ayoko talaga ng salon, ganyan. Siyempre, pagpasok ko pa lang ng barbershop, alam na nila na, like, babae, ganyan. So, nung nakalagay kasi, 350 lang yung gupit, ganyan. So, okay, 350, ganyan. Tapos nung magbabayad na ako, sabi niya, ay, hindi po 350, parang 450 po. Sabi ko, bakit 450? Eh, nakalagay 350 kasi po babae kayo and it is a barbershop na only for men. Sabi ko, yung gupit ko naman, like, konti nga lang yung binawas. So, yun. Tapos, then, in relation with what Ali has said, na, of course, minsan kasi I pass, na minsan talaga I pass. And then, kasi diba sa barbershop, like, talagang may mamassage ka. Tapos, diba parang iba-brush pa yung likod mo. Eh, ganyan. Tapos, bubuksan yung likod ng t-shirt mo. Eh, minsan kasi I wear binders. Ganyan. Eh,
Okay.
natatakot ako na kapag ginanon niya, tapos makikita niya naka-binder ako. Of course, malalaman niya, oh, but to my binder, ganyan. So, kaya ang ginagawa ko, sinasabihan ko na yung barbero ko na, no, parang ayoko ng masahe, tapos ako magbabrush sa sarili ko.
Pwede pala yun.
Oo, yun ang
Pwede siya.
Pwede siya. Parang pwede mong kuhanin kay Kuya Barbero, tapos ikaw na magbabrush. Kung ayaw mong
Sabi ko,
hawakan ka niya.
parang ang sakit ng katawan ko today, parang ayoko ng masahe, ganyan. Tapos,
Mm.
Right. I wanted
Okay.
to add to the gender neutral design of bathrooms. Perhaps moving forward, establishments can have single stall bathrooms.
Mhm.
So not
Yeah.
just urinals,
Yeah.
Yeah.
healthy hygiene, and because it's very private. It's a private act too, you know.
Mm.
So hopefully, moving forward, designers and designer of spaces can think of that as well. What do you think about sex-specific multivitamins? Do you take them, especially with Mibo, Aly, and Mela, for transitioning or during your transitions? Was it significant?
Actually, we could also include,
Go ahead.
yeah, we can also include like sex-specific products, not just multivitamins. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yung sanitary napkins.
Pink
Oh
tax,
yeah,
ganyan.
like pads. Like menstrual pads or whatever. So
The thing is, because it affects a lot of marketing and bottom line
yeah.
for the
Mhm.
business and sales, right? At the bottom line. The thing is, hopefully, through discussions like this, designers would become more, develop a more omni vision when it comes to their
Mhm.
designs to include everybody. And with that in mind, and also the economic impacts of their design, because how society has been shaped, it was always towards the majority, and that became norm, and that became standards, and that created, the problems that we have right now. So is there such a distinct thing when it comes to, let's say, because when it comes to shampoos, the differentiation for me, I know it's a marketing thing, it's within the sense, but in formulation, perhaps there is no difference between men's products or female products, right?
The pink
So
tax. Yeah.
So to you, what do you think? What if a product is gender specific? How does it affect you?
would you
Mela.
rather have products designed for your gender, or
Yeah.
you're okay with the products that are existing in the market?
I guess siguro I'm at a point in which I appreciate myself even more that I do not care about the products and whether it's for men or women.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
But
answer.
at the end of the day, I appreciate masculine wash and feminine wash, and they're just soaps, diba?
Yeah.
They just differ in smell. Flowery yung feminine wash, minty yung masculine wash. And that goes with soap na, di ba merong soap for men? Na clean
Yeah.
din
Like Dove Men.
men, merong whatever. I think um right now as a consumer, I am more focused on if the product works for me
Works.
or not. So for the shampoo that I use, I am very much happy with the shampoo and conditioner that I use.
Your hair is nice. What shampoo?
Uh,
Yeah, what shampoo do you use?
Your hair is nice.
it's okay because I'm very proud of the shampoo that I
let's chat it to Naz na.
no because it works for me. It really really works for me. With the soap that I use, I'm very happy because I'm using something that is endorsed by my favorite Win Meta Win. So after that type of consumerism in which I support these two because they helped me out through the pandemic. So it's no longer about this product is for men alone and for women alone because I can use both of them. And whatever works for me, I am totally fine as long as that product makes me happy. That product makes me beautiful in a sense, and I'm happy with the results. So I'll try these products regardless of they are intended for men, women, or whoever, because it's really the quality that I am after.
Okay. How about Ali?
Um, I share the same opinion as Mela. As long as it serves its purpose. For me lang, kasi hindi pa ako nagka-transition. May problem lang talaga ako with using sanitary pads. Pag bibili ka kasi, tapos dadalhin mo sa cashier, talagang tinitignan ka nila. Hindi ko alam kung figure out ba nila if it's for me or if it's for my girlfriend. Hindi ko alam. Pero it's a very, very awkward experience. Hindi ko na matandaan yung last time na bumili ako personally. Kasi sobrang pangit talaga. So,
Parang I agree with Ali, no? And with Bella na as long as it serves the purpose na kasi merong namang shampoo na pang lalaki na pang babae. May soap na pang lalaki at pang babae. Pero walang sanitary napkin na para din sa lalaki or para sa babae. Na kapag bibili ka talaga ng napkin, doon ka talaga sa parang feminine section. And of course, I cannot speak for the whole trans community, but for the people that I know, Ali, especially Ali, na buying sanitary napkin can sometimes be an awkward and fearful situation. Kasi parang, oh, okay, sige, parang, oh, I feel like a man today, ganyan-ganyan, kahit kumari, meron ako. But, ano ba yun? Yung buying sanitary napkin and you thinking that other people can see you, parang, there's a fear na they might perceive me as fake, na, oh, bakit ka may hawak na sanitary napkin? Siguro, hindi ka lalaki, ganyan. There's a parang internal dialogue going on. And, yun. Siguro
Does
dun yung go well.
is that considered gender dysphoria? That is also gender dysphoria,
That
ba?
could be a trigger.
When it affects your
That's a
breast.
trigger.
Kasi for me,
Yeah, okay.
pag nabapansin ko na mas, well, it's just, parang gusto ko lang din sabihin na not all transgender people experience gender dysphoria. Some are, parang okay lang. Pero for me, in our experience, Ali and I, napansin ko kapag time of the month, like the red week, dun talaga mas mataas yung gender dysphoria kasi dun ko nararamdaman na yung biological body ko is not aligned with who I am. Ganun. So, and then dadagdagan mo pa ng bibili ka pa ng napkin na may external parang variables din. So, yeah.
There's perception of other people also added to that. Yeah, that.
Parang it's easy kasi nasabihin mo, oh, wag mo lang kasi pansinin yung sinasabi ng ibang tao. It's easy to say that, but it's easier said than done. Parang we live in a social world, of course. But sometimes, as a human being, talagang ina-acknowledge din natin at iniisip din natin yung sinasabi ng ibang tao. And that's how we also validate ourselves. Na parang minsan kasi, sabihin mo, hindi, basta alam mo lang kung sino ka inside. Okay na yan. Pero kapag lalabas ka, tapos sasabihin ka ng ma'am or sir, ganyan. Parang na-invalidate yung internal world mo. So, there. So, I think design is really important for, not just, of course, not just for the LGBT community, but for the whole species per se.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. The sentiment was very well put. Okay, I think the discussion when it comes to gender, it cannot really be just summarized in one session. It has to have its own conversation, and it's a dialogue. It's a continuous dialogue, and it evolves. It has been evolving since the beginning of time, honestly, when it comes to gender, with the discovery of human beings and who they are, what your identity is, what you relate to. So hopefully this episode will be a beginning for that, especially with our field that is more related to design. Hopefully Fuji Bill will help improve the lives of everybody, particularly LGBTQ and beyond that, and everybody. Me personally, as a cisgender heterosexual woman, I would love equality in society as well. I've been subject to a lot of things as well. So equality, of course, it's very idealistic, but what we can do is just strive and do our best to get to peaceful or more peaceful. I think absolute peace can never happen. I'm pessimistic like that, but at least to a more peaceful society where everybody can thrive and treat each other better. So I would like to ask our guest, Mark, once again, if there's anything you would like to add to our discussion, we would appreciate it.
Well, I guess when it comes to design, and specifically designing things for people, because we never design just for the sake of design. We design for people and for people to use. One thing that I'm like starting to realize, and something that I like trying to put the thought into my head, the one way we can actually design things better for LGBTQ people is to, number one, start hiring more queer and LGBTQ designers. Because I'm realizing, number one, you cannot design for something that you do not know. It's hard for me to speak and to speak about the transgender experience because I'm not transgender. And just the same way that it's hard for a straight person to design for gay people because they're not gay. And realization, you know how hard it is to find a gay designer in tech? You will not find someone right away. I'm one of
masculine.
It's a very masculine dominated industry. So the moment we start hiring more designers who are queer, who are trans, and seeing them in our spaces, they eventually will be able to help out design for these problems. A good example, I realized there is this amazing transgender woman who is part of the Microsoft C Sharp team. And she actually is like specific, speaks to that experience. Or there's someone in Google who is as a statistics engineer, etc., who has a drag name called Analytical, and it helps actually like figure out like how to design for queer people with queer people in mind. So I think the best way we actually are able to design for spaces like, let's say, bathrooms, to websites, to even the products we use today, we need to start hiring more gay, queer, trans people. In the same way, like there's a trans tipping point, there needs to be a better LGBTQ tipping point of like LGBTQ people working in the spaces that we need.
Right. Oh, ako, if I may add something,
Mm.
I think it stems out with the fact with how we are acculturated as kids. Because as kids, diba, we were given toys that are specific to men and women.
Mm.
And we are told that these things are for men and these things are for boys and these things are for girls. Diba? It started with colors, it started with toys, it started with how we should act to situations. That is why I guess in terms of exploring different fields, nalilimit natin yung options natin that as a trans woman, I can be a military person. And my God, as now, I want to explore as an actress. I want to be a military, a trans woman in the military. I want to do it. Diba? I want to explore that route and that role. Because lagi natin iniisip, soldiers, men. Yun yung sinasabi sa atin na tayo. Pilots, men. Policemen, men. Because men are meant to save women. Diba? It's really the culture um, on how we get to interact with kids, on how we talk to kids. That is why I guess part of the design experience for me is to be able to destroy or at least improve on designs for kids. Para at least as early as 3, 4, and 5, they get to experience different things na hindi labeled na for men, for boys, for women, for girls. So, yun siya sa akin. Kaya MK, I'm sure there will be LGBTQ plus people who will be dominating, diba? Dominating the tech industry. Because right now, we are getting opportunities. We are exploring on these opportunities. Same goes with, I am happy to see a trans woman in the police. At ang tawag sa kanya ay Madam. I think she's in Cubao.
Ganda.
So,
I love it.
these openers can provide understanding for kids na parang balang araw, this specific kid can be who he, she, them want to be someday.
Parang,
Yeah.
sorry, parang additional lang na ang caveat is, well, when it comes to inclusive design, parang parang lahat naman tayo agree na, no, hindi naman ibig sabihin na lahat colorful na or lahat gender neutral na. Parang for example, with napkins, na okay lang, may pink pa rin, may yellow pa rin, may black pa rin. It's just that more design na serves other gender or other people as well. So yun lang.
Yeah. I want to hear the thoughts of Ali regarding what Mela said about educating the kids, because we know that you're an educator for kids. So what do you think about that? I mean, can you, I mean, it's, sorry for asking this much, can you suggest something, or do you see a solution to what her concern was?
Well, kasi ako, I grew up in a Catholic school. Catholic school ako most of my life. I've only had the experience of teaching in a progressive school for a year. So nakita ko yung difference, mas open ang progressive schools kaysa Catholic schools. ang Catholic schools tinuturo sa'yo, bata pa lang, ano ang family, mommy, daddy, kids. Yun na yun. Wala nang two mommies or two daddies. And very, ano ba to? Opposed sila sa LGBT. Ramdam na ramdam ko yun. Alam ko lahat yun. Um, Isa sa mga maganda sa progressive schools sa pinagturuan ko before was inintroduce yung iba't ibang kinds of families. So, bata pa lang, nursery yung tinuruan ko. So, bata pa lang, pinapakita sa kanila na a family is, it doesn't matter if mommy or daddy lang yun. Pwedeng two mommies, pwedeng two daddies. Parang ino-open mo na yung idea sa bata na there are more than one gender. There's more than one gender. Hindi lang male, hindi lang female. So, doon kami nag-start. I think personally maganda kapag tinuro siya at a very young age.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You have to start
It-
educating
Okay.
actually both the
Primary.
parents, then children as well in regards to gender
Yeah.
diversity. Mibo,
So,
you want
parang-
to add anything?
Yes, parang I agree with Ali no, na important talaga. And I think sinabi rin siya ni Miss Mela na habang bata, parang it's important. So parang akin lang, before we teach children this concept, let's ask ourselves first, how do children learn? Parang they learn through parang stories, songs, yung mga simpleng bagay, ganyan. Kaya nakakatuwa ngayon. Kasi kung like tuturuan mo lang ng concepts, maboboard yan. Baka alisan ka niyan or maglaro na lang siya, di ba? Pero ngayon, kasi parang children parang they learn through stories, mga books, and then songs. And then kaya nakakatuwa yung presence ng mga books ngayon na meron na rin yung mga dalawang mommies, dalawang daddies, ganyan. At least, mas nako-conceptualize, mas may, alam mo yun, may foundation yung sinasabi natin. Parang different kinds of family.
Yung isa din na
Um,
naisip ko is, sorry.
Go ahead, Ali. Go ahead.
Yung, this just popped in my head. Kasi di ba tinuturuan nga kids about, yun, different kinds of families. Hindi lang yung bata yung natuturuan mo, pati yung magulang. Pinapakita mo sa kanila how to be more open, to be more accepting of LGBT people. Kasi may iba thinking na kapag gay nagtuturo sa anak nila, their child will turn out gay. And mali yun eh. It's not, that doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Yun, maganda lang para sa akin is kapag accepting yung parents, alam mo yun, parang mas marami silang matututunan, mas maraming tao mas magiging accepting sa LGBT community.
That's right. Mibo, earlier you mentioned something about school uniforms. That you were uncomfortable with the school uniforms that you had. If you were to redesign it, how would you redesign it?
And again, parang giving more options for people na pwede rin namang may like palda if people are more comfortable wearing that. And then sana rin meron ding option na pants, for example. Kasi minsan naman kahit cisgender ka or straight ka, may mga babae pa rin. Ako, may kilala ako na very uncomfortable pa rin wearing like palda, ganyan. So just giving more options palagi. That's I think.
Yeah, and I want to ask Ali naman because he has a brand called Bado, which is inclusive design. So, what do you think about designing school uniforms naman?
Mibo and I went to the same school. So alam ko yung concerns niya. Nagkataon, he graduated 1 year earlier than me. So, yung younger batches na experience nila, hindi ko lang alam kung natupad. Nagpe-present na sila ng other uniform options. So, may pants, pero curvy pa rin yung polo.
Okay.
Oh my
Pero,
God.
Pleated na
pero-
blouse.
Oo. Pero yung isa doon is graduation. Gusto ko lang talaga ma-bring up yung graduation. Bawal kaming graduate na naka-pants. Bawal kaming mag-march na naka-pants. Bawal kaming mag-march nang hindi naka-high heels. Kahit
Wow.
we keep on explaining, mahirap maglakad ng naka-heels. Hindi kami comfortable na naka-dress. Ayaw nila. So, wala lang, naalala ko lang na Graduation day, lahat sila tinitignan kami lahat sa ilalim ng toga namin. Iniisa-isa lahat kami.
Yes. In
And
related
they think
experience,
we're gender woke school.
tapos parang hinahunting talaga yung experience ko. Sabi ko, hindi ako magtutupi ng pants, hindi ako magtutupi ng polo ko kasi graduation ko to, ganyan. Parang, hindi, pipipila na, like maglalakad na. Talagang hinahunting kami. Parang tumito, parang may isa talagang lumapit sa akin na school person na talagang iniisa-isa nila kami na you need to fold your pants, ganyan. Or else, hindi daw ibibigay yung diploma mo. Ganyan. So, syempre ako, gusto ko naman ma-receive yung diploma ko. So, ang ginawa ko, tinupi ko na para okay na. So, pagkababa ko nung stage, tinext ko agad yung mom ko na, dalhin mo na dito yung sapatos ko, ayaw ko na ng heels, ganyan. Tapos, yung mom ko talagang dumaan siya sa, para lang ibigay yung sapatos ko. Tapos,
Pero
hindi ko
kayo
na
graduate nakapants. Graduate kayo nakapants. Kami pinag-sign ng waiver na bawal kami
there.
mag-pants. Pinapirma pa sa
Diba?
pele. Now, we won't get our diploma.
Oh my God. Like, Mela, hindi ko ma-imagine sa atin, no, like, how we would redesign our school
Yeah, how
uniform. No,
for you
not
for
school.
your for your school naman. You both came from an exclusive school rin, di ba?
Yeah, we,
exclusive.
we both came from the same high school. Mas
Okay.
mauna-una sa akin si Mela by 4 years. Tama ba? I don't want to put
Wala
you on the
nang
spot.
revelation ng age.
No, ako confident ako sa age reveal ko.
Okay, sige.
Wait, pero pride dyan si Mela ng school namin. In fairness, malayo na ano.
So for you, Mark, how would you design your user school uniform?
No, well, again, because I'm cisgendered, so I didn't have a problem with my uniform. My only problem was it was cut so badly. Like,
Okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
all uniforms are.
Ang pangit ng cut ng
that's
uniform na yun.
material.
Like, every year when I get at least like one new pair of pants, dinadala namin sa... Actually, I was lucky. My grandmother knew how to sew. Inaayos niya yung cut para sa akin. Yun. So, like, they always had to refit certain things for me. Pero the biggest issue, I think, with our school when it comes to certain things like that, alam mo yung pati yung socks namin inuusisa. Mismo yung, hindi lang
Yeah,
socks,
that's true.
hindi lang socks, pati, what they call this, yung ID strap, ID cord.
Okay.
Yung ID lace, sobrang specific. And I just remember this kasi pinanood ko yung trailer ng movie ng friend namin. Oh my God, yung pamaypay. Like, makita ka may dalang pamaypay, lagot ka.
Hindi pwedeng mainit
Okay.
lang.
Tama.
Dapat mainitan ka, hindi ka pwedeng magpalamig.
So, siya, conduct on becoming of a gentleman.
Yes, conduct on becoming of a
True.
gentleman.
Okay.
Poste ka.
So Mela, kung papabalikin kita sa high school nyo, kunwari, baga high school ko sa same high school, ano yung pwede mong suotin na sa tingin mo would be appropriate for you?
Ako siguro, parang experiencing a university that allows you to be free. I guess baka no uniform policy would be more apt for me because I get to express who I am through clothes, or I get to be simple, I get to be extravagant. It's a choice. I think it allows us to choose whoever we want to be.
Pero,
Mela, yes, nagkaroon naman ng uniform policy because of that. Because of that freedom din naman. Kasi at the end of the day, parang allowing yourself to choose is an opportunity to self-discovery. Yun naman parati yung handle ko on my end. Because I chose to be me. Diba? I chose to be me and I chose to live by my truth. Diba? I know that I am a queen inside and I chose to live it. And I chose to
And you are a queen now.
Literally.
The funny thing is,
Literally.
Mela, like our school didn't used to have a uniform before 2000.
Yes.
Walang uniform yung school namin. And then it suddenly had one.
Because of the extravagance naman.
Oo.
Meron daw ng fashion show or whatever. Hindi na natin alam yung mga context nung ganon.
Yeah.
Pero siguro, looking at the context of me choosing who I want to be and choosing my life, di ba? I guess parang I'd be more comfortable if I am given the opportunity to choose the things that I want to wear and express myself in a manner that I will be free and be comfortable with who I am.
Yeah. I guess kasi this whole uniform thing is rooted on conformity kasi. So I think
Mhm.
that's what as individuals or people who wants to discover themselves in that age, yung gusto mong to express yourself but you can't. That's what we feel that it hinders us from discovery, self-discovery kasi. So, Naz, going to another question. Do you have another question for them?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to add because like everybody talking about their high school, that reminded me of my high school. I grew up in Iran, and schools are not co-ed until college. Some colleges are not even. The thing is, it makes me happy to think that at least this side of me, because I'm half Filipino, like there are conversations like these that are happening, regardless of like the tightness or Catholicism or the religion of the country, that people are conversing and opening the dialogue because options like that never existed when I was growing up. I have been detained because I was wearing nail polish, or in school I've been sent to the principal's office because my shoelaces were colored. So the comparison, like hopefully, I don't know, I really wish for countries like that are that restricted also at someday expression of gender or sexuality could be more free as well. Definitely goes against religious beliefs that are mandated by the government, but everything is so underground and contrived that having the slightest sexual expression or outwards sexual expression can really get you in trouble for your life. So hopefully, these conversations that we have dominoes to other nations or like other people for openness and coming together. It's just like different species. It's a pandemic. We can't still unify. I'm sorry, that was just anyway.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So what we will do is I'll give you a word and I need you to react a short reaction about that word. And these are the words that we already talked about. So I'll start off with Sogi or Soji. Mela.
It's it's a must for us to understand it so that we can able to appreciate one another.
Yes. Mark.
It is people's truth that people need to respect and understand. You may not understand everything, but it's something that you need to at least respect because it's their truth, not yours.
Mibo.
Soji is for everyone, not just for the LGBT community.
Okay. Ali.
No matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what your gender identity is, you are valid.
Hmm.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And our next word. Baka maging controversial to. Pink. The color pink. Let's start off with Mark. The color pink.
Nakatawa, I'm wearing pink.
Is that pink? I thought it was brown.
No, it's pink. Like so,
Okay, it's pink.
because I came from a date with my
Pastel.
boyfriend din eh. So, pink. Oddly enough, the first thing that comes to mind is Pink Floyd. Weird. Like that's what I thought.
Manifestation.
Yeah, like Pink Floyd. Pero pink. Oddly enough, to me, pink, it just means flesh. It's
Okay.
you. Like it's tangible.
Mibo, how about you? Pink. What is pink for you?
Happy color. That's it.
Happy color. And then Ali, pink.
Cotton candy.
Color.
Yan talaga naman.
And masaya rin yun. And Mela, what is pink for you?
It's a color of power and anyone can wear it.
Yes. And you know that there's a history of pink.
Really?
Kasi ngayon, 'di ba, it's associated to female.
Male.
Why is it associated to female? You might ask. Um Eisenhower, the wife of Eisenhower, the former president of the United States, actually wore pink in a ball. Yes, no, because everyone was wearing blue because of the war of World War. Kasi because working, they were working in factories, and blue was such a sad color for them because of that association. So when Mimi Eisenhower wore pink, it became like sort of a transition for them that it's happy now.
P.
So that's why Mimi Eisenhower, she made pink happen for girls. So eventually there were pink pink stoves, pero wala pang association with girls pa nun eh. More of like pink was
Happy.
in that time, was
Like it's just
happy ganyan.
trendy.
And then eventually yung pink na yung nakuha ng girls. Pero at that time, 50-50. Pink and blue are the color for girls.
Parang in addition to that,
What I read it was that it was in reverse. Blue was assigned to girls when it comes to like babies and gender reveal and stuff. So blue was assigned to girls and pink was assigned to boys.
In Iran?
No, in the world.
In the world? I thought in Iran.
parang, ano lang, in addition with that, I
During the olden times.
actually read the book regarding the segregation of color. Parang before nga lahat gender neutral, blue and pink. And then parang napansin ng mga marketing people, oh, parang bumababa na yung sales natin kasi gender neutral lahat. Eh, mas bumibenta ang isang product according to them kapag personalized yung product. So, what if gawin natin na yung pink, para lang yan sa babae, tapos yung, for example, blue, para lang yan sa lalaki. So, napansin nila, yung ginawa nila yung color segregation na yun, mas tumaas yung sales ng mga damit, for example, ganyan. So, parang, awan ko, baka naging simula na rin yun with the whole.
Yeah, which is actually what happens now with in relation with color psychology. In packaging, you can see that certain colors are used, like
Red and orange are
not
for
just in
food.
packs. Yeah, red and orange are for food, green for healthy food, green and brown for healthy food, something like that. And brands, I mean, organization brands, banks are usually blue,
Blue.
something like that. So it's because it's in connection with the color psychology, because blue is perceived to be
Security.
trustworthy.
Trustworthy.
I know, gusto ko yung trustworthy.
Parang ngayon ko lang narinig yung association with blue, using that word.
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy.
Wait.
Okay. Yung next word, sorry na wala na ako, nag-pink na tayo. So, next word, underwear. Sige, sino simula? Mibo, underwear.
Pass. I don't know.
Pass.
I don't know
Too
what to say.
personal ba pag underwear? Hindi mo sabihin, hindi ko naman...
I just don't know what to say. Parang, oh, underwear.
What comes to your mind when underwear? Or let's go to Ali, underwear.
Necessity.
Necessity. Although that's simple. Great. Mark.
Because before this pandemic, I was also a drag queen. My corset, na I don't fit in
Your
anymore.
corset. Oh, wow.
I don't fit in anymore.
Sunod na dyan, diet na yan. So, saan na sinabi mo, underwear, diet. Kasi hindi ka na nag-fit. So, Mela, what is underwear for you?
This is too much information, but because of the quarantine, I'm no longer used to wearing underwear. And that is up on my end.
Power
A
yun.
lot of things.
Power yun.
Power.
We can live without
Yes.
underwear.
Yes.
All right. So I guess I want to ask everybody if they can come up and summarize what they can take away from the session that we had. It was a wonderful session. I learned a lot, a lot. This was
Yes, we
very
learned a lot.
enlightening for me. As a cisgender, heterosexual female, it opened my eyes to so many problems that have been existing. And me as a designer, perhaps moving forward, I need to, it's my duty to include and think about other people other than me or others than are like me. But the diversity that is there, even when you think about it economically, cannot be even ignored anymore. So, Ali, I would like to ask you for your takeaway or what you would like to say you have learned from our episode.
By creating designs that caters to the LGBT community, we get to build an inclusive space for everyone. And by creating an inclusive space, we get to have a more positive experience. And when we have a more positive experience, we get to live out our truths.
Right? Mibo.
When it comes to parang usapin ng LGBT community, especially with the debate, ang napansin ko kasi, especially now na yung Soji Bill, no to Soji Bill, yes to Soji Bill, parang nasa ulo palagi, masyadong logical, na minsan we forgot to have compassion with other people. Parang more of, hindi, mali ka, tama ako. Parang ganun lang. Binary lang minulit na tama ka, mali ako. Ganyan. Parang I like our discussion kasi it's not just about like the intellectual things, the logical things. Parang may touch din of, oh, mahirap pala for LGBTQ na ganito yung design. Ganito pala yung experience with ganitong design. So, I want that parang more discussion, full of parang compassion din with other people aside from the intellectual parang things. Kasi parang intindihan ko naman na mahirap talagang intindihin for now yung konsepto ng LGBTQ people. And when people doesn't know about something, sometimes it can be really fearful. Kapag hindi mo alam. For example, yung ibang tao takot sa dagat kasi hindi natin alam kung ano bang meron sa dagat, na ano bang mga monster ang meron dyan. Pero nakikita mo naman yung mga well-versed with oceans and ocean parang mga fish, na hindi sila takot, na talagang pumupunta pa talaga sila sa malalalim na parte ng dagat. Parang I want that to be the same scenario, not just for the LGBT community, but also for other taboo subjects, for other minority as well. Like, what we really need is a discussion that involves compassion.
Yeah, to incorporate it more in UX and design thinking, having empathy when it comes to designing systems and our spaces and our products. Mela,
I think based on our discussion, I just realized that we have been accustomed to designs that are imposing, diba? In terms of seeing scholars, in terms of um, specific experiences, like, oh, these are just for men, these are just for women. Everything is just being imposed by others. I hope that as we move forward, and hopefully this discussion was able to bring out that design must be choice centric and option centric. Just like products na maraming variants. For example, a shampoo can be for straight and silky. This shampoo is for bouncy and whatever. This shampoo is specific for curly and whatever. Products and designs should also have that feel in which I can choose and I have the opportunity to choose because we live in a different we live in different contexts. We live in different experiences. And when we find specific choices that fit our choices and our context, we feel included. Diba? We feel that we belong into a certain world in which I am not hindered. Diba? Whether it be uniform, it be bathrooms, it be products, services, or whatever, sana laging may choice. At yung choice na yon will always move toward to the person, giving him, her, them the options to be happy and to live out their truths.
Well, but Mark,
Well put.
I guess.
Ito ng corona.
Yeah. I guess for me, like from like my main takeaway and what I'm constantly like seeing now is like a lot of the design we do, and even in this discussion, a lot of the design we do comes from an assumption, and that's one thing we really have to stop doing. Instead, like, and I one of my favorite designers and talks is this girl named Tatiana Mack, and she talks about accessible and inclusive design, and she says something about empathy, where she actually doesn't believe in empathy because we use as designers we tend to use empathy just as a verb, and we end at that, like we okay, I empathize, so I've given so many surveys and that's done. Pakitang tao lang siya just to say that you've done the work, but that ends up with an assumption. But the reality is, in this discussion alone, like ang dami kong like there are so many viewpoints and we don't know every single viewpoint. We need to and we need to stop assuming and start trusting the people we design for, especially when we're not part of the community we're designing for. Like you cannot empathize because I don't know how it feels like to transition. So I cannot empathize to that because I will never know what it feels like. But I can trust in the experiences of Ali, of Mela, of Mibo, that this is how they feel and this is how what they think they need. And I need to design with what they need and not what I think they need. So we need to start trusting the people, the communities, and the people we design for, not just assuming what they need the most.
but I think it's also, let's say, other people who are not from the same gender or community could advocate or help or
Yes.
unify to empathize in a sense that sometimes you don't necessarily have to go through the same thing to be able to empathize, but then be quiet when somebody from that community gives
Yes.
their truth and to be open to accept it. I think that that would be the best way to put it, to like, to be open to acceptance of what your truth is different from another person's,
Yes. To
and
trust that. To
listen.
trust that. Yeah.
Mark, I know you have a podcast, if I'm not mistaken, or you create content.
Sorry, me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't have a podcast or I don't create content. I mean, is there anything I want to promote? Oh,
Yeah, anything.
uh, so if anything, I'd like to promote like more inclusive cities, and that says we are launching something called Share the Road with Her, with the Filipino freethinkers. So it's again for gender inclusivity on the road, specifically this time. Um, within 20 from February 25 to, if I'm correct, February 25 onwards. So feel free to bring out your active transport and we will try to protect you as much as possible. So I will probably join and help marshal people on that.
Okay. And Ali, you have your clothing line, Bado.
Yeah. Yeah, you can
Where
check
can
us out.
people see the designs?
Sorry.
Where can people see the designs? And
You can check out our Instagram at Bado Designs. So we create clothes that include every kind of. So yeah, we champion inclusivity.
anything you would like to add in articles?
Mibo?
Am I clear? Clear naman yung audio.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, parang I don't know if I'm allowed to promote the job that I do, so I will not promote anything. So, Mela.
So, Mela, anything to...
talk more about the peanut butter, your podcast, your digital content for people to follow and know more about your activism?
Yes. I want to sorry, yung pangit ko na bigla. Okay. Yung bangs ko naman, pumulit naman siya. Okay. Sige. I am inviting everyone to watch the content that I am producing. One is Threesome, that's every Saturday, 9 p.m., in which I engage in an intimate, bold, personal conversations with my guests, and that includes you, the audience. Sabi ko nga, ang Threesome kasama ako, ikaw, at ang ating guest. I'll also have shows on Spaces Manila. It's called Track You, in which we discuss LGBTQ issues and social issues related with LGBTQ plus people. I also am involved with a BL podcast called Right When Nance, in which we discuss anything real and especially our love for writing word, as you can tell. Um, my peanut butter will be out again soon, but I am fulfilling my duties as your Miss Trans Global. Soon I will be launching campaigns like Humanity True Colors and so a support group system for transgender women. And I hope to fulfill my duty as your queen, and hopefully you'll be able to support Miss Trans Global as an organization and as a movement towards trans inclusivity.
Mibo,
Yay!
I saw that you would like to add to our
Okay, so parang I won't promote any products or any establishment, but I just want to promote something that if you need help, help is out there, and that's the job that I do. So just don't parang wag matakot humingi ng tulong. And of course, in the university that I work for, I think we're trying to really structure something to be more inclusive, especially for the LGBT people. Yun lang. I just want to promote na help is out there. And nakakalungkot na you have to find it, at least for now. But it's out there, and we're trying to help more people as we can.
Oh, before I forget, and I guess I wanted to promote, please remember to pass, support, and continue to push for the
So,
Sugi Quality Bill.
Yes, yes, so yes, so Bill.
yeah, to me both. Like the thing is, especially with the given pandemic and isolation, everybody's mental health, and given the post-pandemic will be a PTSD era, so hopefully whomever's watching this, they can also tell their friends that mental health is a very important issue. It's a very real issue, not just for LGBTQ community, but for everybody. So not to be afraid to seek help and ask for help for therapy, and hopefully we'll get through all of this together. And once again,
Yes.
I'd like to thank everybody
Everyone,
for
thank you.
giving them their time. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mibo. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Mela. It was wonderful meeting you, at least for now, virtually. Hopefully,
Yes.
we get to hang out.
Yes,
Better.
soon.
Hopefully, soon.
All
See
right.
you in person soon.
Right. So please, I would like to ask the audience again to send us their questions. Please, let's keep this conversation going. The more we know about it, the better we become as people, and that's how we grow. The more we talk about uncomfortable situations and uncomfortable topics, and that's how we get out of our comfort zone, and we expand and we stretch and we grow. So thank you again, and this is the second episode of Inclusive PH podcast. Thank you, Alan, for joining me.
Thank you, Naz, for joining me too.
So for creating this
Thank.
platform for us to talk about this topic. Anyway, so
Yes.
have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.